All right, folks. Wow, talk about long time no see, right? So, I've currently just recently gotten back to the States from overseas deployment type stuff. So, I've been a little busy the past couple months, as I'm sure you've seen in the channel. Haven't really uploaded a whole lot of stuff. I have been able to reply to a few comments here and there, but I haven't really been able to shoot videos because I obviously don't have my weapons on me. So, but now that I'm back in the land of the free, we can return to a somewhat normal presentation, I guess. Uh, so just getting back, let's just say I got myself a deployment gift from myself to myself, and wow, how did I know exactly what I wanted to get? Wow, imagine that, right? So one thing that's been on my list for a little while is a 9mm 1911, because like I said, I've had the two 1911s in 45 ACP, and I wanted to try one in 9mm that wasn't like a super expensive like STI or whatever, because honestly I'm not really a fan of the STIs. I've shot like two of them, and they didn't really they were nice guns, yeah, of course, but it wasn't like something that I really was super interested in. So I opted for more like a basic thing that I could upgrade and improve myself later to my own tastes and design. So the options out there for a 9mm 1911 were somewhat limited, but it's gotten better. So normally I thought I'd have to go with like an actual Colt 9mm 1911, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in modern Colt production, and there's a lot of reasons behind that. If you know anything about Colt history, it's easy to see why. So hopefully the CZ acquisition of Colt makes that better, but we have yet to see anything from that. So in the meantime, the country of Turkey has made a whole lot of really actually pretty good firearms lately, as far as I can tell, anyways. I have that hipower that I did a video on. I really like that gun. It's been pretty impressive, honestly, for the price and everything else. So right now, Tisas is currently making 1911s and they're coming into the country as like the World War II or World War I like replica 45 ACP models. They have a 9mm service model, which is the one I'll be covering here for this video, and I have it right here. So let's just take a gander at this thing, and you can see right there it says on the slide model 1911A1 service, right? And really that doesn't refer to anything in particular. It just means that this is a 1911 in the most basic configuration possible. So it's like the GI style. So if you've seen my other 1911, the Rock Island GI model, this is basically the same thing with minor differences because it's a different manufacturer, right? And obviously this one is in 9mm. So I picked this up for not a great price, but decent price, because these are still relatively new-ish, and considering the economy in the market right now, it's kind of hard to find really good deals on new guns, and this is a new gun, so I figured why not. Decided to pick it up. So, but yes, this is essentially the most basic version of a 1911 that you can get. It's got standard beaver tail, it's got the very basic rudimentary rear notch sight, and the simple post rounded blade kind of front sight there. You can see super basic, super basic. No fancy features on it whatsoever. No pick rail here. No weird full length guide rod, things like that. Standard bushing with the recoil spring cap. All stuff that you expect from a bare bones, no frills 1911. And that's exactly what I wanted to get because, as anyone knows, the customization for 1911, sky's the limit, man. You can go absolutely nuts with these things. So, how does this compare to other, shall we say, budget-minded options for 1911s, right? So, I have a Rock Island 45, which is very similar to this one. And I will say, I think the finish is a little bit nicer on these because it's not, I hesitate to call it a parkerization because my fingerprints and oil doesn't quite make the same kind of stains as the parkerization, the true parkerization of the Rock Island. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the Rock Island here with me to kind of compare them right here on camera, but just, from my experiences and how long I've shot that gun versus this one, the differences are obvious. So, so I imagine this is some kind of Cerakote, because Tisas is pretty, it's kind of like their thing. They like to Cerakote the gun. So the finish on this really does remind me of the hipower that I bought as well, in the sense that it just kind of, it has a certain kind of feel and finish to it. It's hard to describe it unless you see it in person, but it's very, very reminiscent of the hipower. So if you ever handled one of those or seen one of those in person, this is pretty much the same finish. And it's quite handsome, I have to say. I think this gun looks great. Don't mind the little oil stains there. I just cleaned it. You know, I'm handling it, of course, with my grubby fingers. But honestly, I think it's a really handsome pistol. Despite how basic it is, and I know it's just a 1911, but to me, 1911s are very handsome pistols to begin with. So when you get down to it, to the basic fundamentals and, you know, basic, you know, no frills model, none of that fancy modern crap on here, you know, I think it looks like a pretty good gun. You know, nice and handsome, very basic, but still gets the job done. So, this one does actually have the extended kind of like bobbed hammer on there. So you can see the hammer on that is actually quite wide compared to other 1911s where it's more flush with the hammer channel. This one sticks out a little bit, and I actually don't mind that because it makes it a whole lot easier to cock it with your thumb, you know, in case for whatever reason you have to do that, you know. Makes it a whole lot easier to just grab that and just, you know, go to town. It also makes it a little easier to hold on to when you're decocking it, you know. Just be careful with it, of course. It's got, you know, the usual half cock that we all expect, pretty basic. I mean, this is a 1911, so if you know how to work 1911s, this should be absolutely no surprise to you whatsoever. I will say the safety on this is very positive. I like it a lot. You know, nice click there. So that's always a good sign. I really do like 1911s that have very positive safeties. I don't like 1911s that don't. Frankly, I don't like a whole lot of pistols that don't have a very positive kind of, very clicky safety like that. If I can't feel the click on there like that, I tend not to like them that much. So, sorry CZ75 fans out there, I don't think the safeties are that nice. But 1911s have, I think, one of the best manual safeties ever devised. It's just very natural to me. When I have the manual safety on, you got a round chamber in here, you're ready to go, and you draw it out of your holster and present. It's super natural for me to just have my thumb right here on the edge when I draw, and as I'm presenting, I just push it down, go to town. Super easy for me. But then again, I've been shooting 1911s for a very, very long time, and it's what I grew up shooting. So to me, it's very natural. I love having a manual safety. And if I was to carry this, I would carry it cocked and locked, no problem. So as far as features go, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about. It's a 1911. If you've been around 1911s, you know. So I will say, obviously, these grips are not factory. I have replaced the grips. The standard factory black plastic grips that come with the gun, honestly, are a little cheap and chintzy. They feel like they belong on an airsoft gun, and I wasn't really a fan of them. So I replaced it with a spare set of the wooden double diamond grips because I feel like it kind of fits the aesthetic a little better and kind of fits the classic, you know, GI style look of a 1911 to have the double diamonds. So of course, you know, those grips back then in the day were like this weird kind of Bakelite, kind of whatever the material for it is called, I forget. It wasn't wood, it was something different. So, but I like wood grips on metal guns. I just like them. But in the future, when I do go to customize this thing, I'm probably going to put like some manner of like G10 or aluminum grips on these because I also really dig aluminum grips. And on my CZ75, I've got some blue and black G10 grips on that, and it's really nice and it handles really well. So it's a hard choice for me between G10 and like aluminum grips because aluminum grips also feel really cool and they got that nice metallic sheen to them, so it looks really cool. You know, so like I said, I got this gun to upgrade and to kind of bling out a little bit in the way that I want to, because I already have my Rock Island, the 45. That's going to be my standard GI gun. Like, I'm not going to mess with that. I'm going to leave it pretty much as is. But this one, because it is 9mm, obviously it's not the original caliber for a GI style gun, so I don't feel bad about modifying it and adding parts and things like that. But as it is out of the box, this thing's actually very slick, smooth action. The trigger, I will say, is a little heavy for a 1911, but it's very, very mil spec in the sense that like the original triggers on original 1911s, like way back in the day when they were first made, honestly didn't have great triggers, and there's so much documentation to say that as well. A lot of history behind that. I won't get into that too much, but the triggers were not especially light, because nowadays we say 1911s have the best triggers of pistols, right? They're just super smooth, they're light, they're predictable, so on and so forth. But when they first made them, they weren't like that. They were mushy, gritty, heavy, and this one is not mushy or gritty, but it is heavy for a 1911 trigger. It is quite heavy. I'd probably say somewhere around like 5.5, 6 pound trigger pull. Not the usual kind of like, I've seen as low as like 2 to maybe like 2.5, 3, 4 pounds maybe on the high side for a 1911 trigger. This one is quite heavy, so just something to know. It didn't really affect my accuracy all that much. I took this out today and went out to go shoot it for the first time, and even with these super basic minimal sights, GI style sights, that little tiny blade in the front, the accuracy I was able to achieve with this was actually quite impressive. I was able to get a 2 2.25 inch group at 25 yards offhand, just standing, regular two-handed grip, just like that. 2.25 inch group at 25 yards. Not even using like great ammunition. I was using blazer brass, aluminum case stuff. So, for me being as rusty as I am right now, not shooting guns for a few months and coming to a pistol I've never shot before. Okay, so arguably it is a 1911 platform, yes, but I've never shot one in 9mm, quite like this, with this setup and this particular gun. Never shot it before. So I really wanted to see what I could do with it and what this gun could do. So very impressive accuracy for this gun. I could probably do a lot better if it took the human factor out of it, me out of it. But the simple fact that even with crap ammunition, I was getting 2.25 inch group at 25, dude, that's spot on, man. Like, you cannot ask for better than that. Because, when I was at the height of my practice and everything else, my personal standard for every pistol that I shot was at minimum a 2 inch group at 25 yards. If I could not achieve that, the pistol either wasn't very accurate enough for me, or I simply just was not able to shoot that with that pistol. So it's a little bit of both of mechanical accuracy and shooter skill kind of put together, but this one definitely had a good showing for as far as accuracy went. So very, very pleased with that, especially considering this pistol's only like $400, So the fact that this thing is able to get like that level of accuracy with that crap ammunition for, I would argue, an average shooter like me, it's pretty impressive. I have to say, it's pretty impressive, and it's just another positive, positive review, I guess, or look upon Tisas as a company, right? Even though people will say whatever about Turkish companies, blah blah blah, whatever they want to say about it. The point is, they make good guns, at least from what I can tell. The hipower has been great. This gun's been great. The accuracy is there. I like accurate guns. I'm sure everyone else does too. Quality of manufacturing, machining, and everything on this is about what you'd expect. It's very comparable to Rock Island, which is just fine to me, because I personally really like my Rock Island. I don't see anything wrong with it. So it's not going to wow you like a really, really nice Colt or like a really nice Dan Wesson. And when I say Colt, I mean the older Colts, not the new ones. Like a nice Dan Wesson or something like that. It's not going to match up to that, obviously. I mean, the barrel has machining marks very clearly visible on where the barrel link sits. It's machining marks all over it. So, yeah, okay, there's a little bit of there, but functionally, there's no problem here. It's a solid base to start from, and that's exactly what I wanted to have. Like I said, because I wanted to upgrade this and see really what I could do with a 9mm 1911, because I've never had one before until this one. So very happy with the accuracy and performance of this gun. I was a little worried at first because 1911s can be fickle, especially ones in 9mm, because both STIs that I shot before, granted they were somebody else's guns, they were not mine, just had constant issues with feeding, constant jams, constant just whatever going on with them. I don't know. They just weren't performing that well. And to me, it was kind of a turnoff because I'm like, well, I don't know if it's the gun or if it's just the guy who's not maintaining it properly because he doesn't know what he's doing because he's got more money than sense. I don't know. But the STIs honestly just were not that impressive to me, which is something to say because I find this gun impressive. And it's, you know, $400 from freaking Turkey of all places, right? But, you know, it just goes to show you that you don't need to spend a whole lot of money to have a quality firearm. Am I saying this gun is as good as an STI? No, absolutely not. Not even close. I'm not that much of a just as good crowd. You know, I'm definitely not in that camp. I just recognize good value when I see it, and this is definitely a good value gun. So I'm happy with my purchase and what I'm able to do with it, and what I'm able to do with it is arguably better than what a lot of people can do with much nicer guns. So you have to find a nice balance between, you know, getting a little philosophical here. You got to find a nice balance between your personal skill and the inherent mechanical accuracy of what you're using. So sometimes you get what you pay for, sometimes you don't. And that goes both ways with cheap and expensive things. So all that having been said, so the functionality of this, right? 1911s are known to have issues with hollow points, and this one was no exception. But what I think from what I discovered here is I did not realize that 1911, at least anyway, this type of 9mm 1911 frame is the same size as 45 ACP frames. That it is a government frame. So, because out of pure curiosity, I took my 45 1911 mags and shoved it in here, and it worked just fine. It locked in, it fit. Obviously, this is a 9mm slide, so I'm not going to put 45 in it. But the fact is, it fit. So I would imagine all of the regular 45 ACP standard 1911 parts would fit in this frame, which is pretty cool to think about. So when I compared the 9mm magazines, as you can see, they look a little bit different from the 45 ones. I compared these to regular 45 ACP magazines. And what I found was the overall size is the same. It's just they've gone through a little bit of engineering to make these magazines work for 9mm. And the way they did that is, let's see if I can find a mag here. It doesn't have a snap cap in it. So, as you can see here, kind of right there on the bottom, there's that big kind of piece of metal right there. That's a spacer, essentially, to make sure that because the 9mm round is a little bit shorter than a 45, so it can sit in there just right so it feeds properly with the dimensions of the gun. Cool. They also have these ribs, like the indentions on both sides, that way it fits and feeds the 9mm correctly, because obviously it's not the same size as a 45, and so on and so forth. So they've done very little changes to ensure that 9mm can feed reliably in a very large 45 ACP frame. But that means that there are some things, some intricacies that don't quite work as well as they should if this was a dedicated 9mm pistol. And one of those things was, for all the magazines I had, these things have incredibly strong springs in them, which is kind of annoying. So right around when I get to the 5th or 6th round, and this one holds 9, and the Wilson Combats here hold 10. Right when I got around to the 5th or 6th round, it became incredibly difficult to shove the rounds in there. Like the springs were fighting me, and sometimes the orientation of the follower wasn't quite right, so the round would be presenting oddly, or it'd be like super shoved up and like not far back where it needs to be. The rounds just weren't sitting correctly in these magazines, and I had to fight them, really. I had to make sure everything was loaded correctly, you know, tap your magazine, all that stuff. And even with that, hollow points had some issues. The biggest issue was when, so let's say slide lock back, right? It's on empty, and you go to insert a mag that has, let's say it's a full, let's say take this 10 rounder, right? And I had 10 rounds of hollow points in here, and go to insert it like normal, right? And then when you go to release the slide, the rounds would just nosedive directly into the gun. They would not feed into the chamber. And I was like, well, that's kind of curious, right? So what I discovered was that the springs in these things are so strong, and I guess just too new, not worn in enough, that they were presenting the rounds at such a incorrect angle that when the slide goes forward to feed, it doesn't push it up the ramp. It just makes it nosedive into the ramp, which happens because hollow points typically have a shorter overall profile length than a traditional FMJ will. They're also blunt on the front, they're not rounded, so that means they tend to just get stuck into the back of the ramp. So I discovered this and I was like, okay, well, what happens if I download the magazine? So that way the spring pressure isn't just jamming those things up as fast as they can, as hard as they can. So I put 2 rounds in the magazine with hollow points, loaded it up, fed just fine. You know, released the slide, slingshot it, whatever, it worked just fine. But then I tried one more thing. I said, okay, what happens if I put a full magazine, 10 rounds here, but then I also do a +1. So I take a round here, shove it in the chamber, let it go, and then I put the mag in. Right, so now I've got like 11 total, 10 plus 1, right? And then went to go shoot it. It worked perfectly. No jams, nothing at all. The only jam I did have was something I've seen before in other guns, actually, believe it or not. So I know it's not just a 1911 issue. Is so right around the magazines here. So it's always the second to last round, and this happens when magazines have too strong a spring, or when the spring outruns the action. Basically, it's not in sync with how fast things are going, or the recoil is just moving things around too much. All the little intricacies and things that go into how a gun is operating when it's in motion. It's always the second to last round. And what happens is when the magazine is in and the round is presented there, the recoil and whatever else goes on when the gun's cycling, it basically, the round in there pops out of the feed lips. And what you get is, you get a very interesting stovepipe. I'm going to see if I can replicate it here for you. You'll get something like this, just popping out of the top, just like that. And this will happen always on the second to last round. Never any other round, always the second to last. And this happens because, like I said, the spring is just trying way too hard in the magazine there to push those rounds out. So the recoil of everything when you're shooting makes it literally pop out of the magazine, and then when the slide goes back forward, it catches it right there, right as it's just flying out of the gun. And I've seen this happen before. On my HKP7, actually, of all things, when I'm using the really shitty, low quality Pro Mag magazines, this is the exact same problem I have with that gun. It's always the second to last round, just boom, straight up popping up like that. Also happened in my SIG P6, also with hollow points, believe it or not. Same thing happened, just boom, just sticking right out of the ejection port, just like that, because the spring is just outrunning the action. It happens. So it's not just a 1911 thing, it happens to other guns too. But it was just interesting to witness that, with this. And I mean, these are brand new magazines. I bought this the same day I bought the gun, so they probably just need some wearing in, some use over time and everything, because it's not something I experienced with my 1911 45s, is because the mags I've had for that are ancient. I mean, we're talking like, I don't know, 1980s magazines, and I've been using them ever since. My dad's been using them ever since. So they've got a lot of wear on them. The springs are just right. Maybe they're a little bit too worn, but the point is, these new springs, new magazines tend to be a little bit too powerful. And I notice that when I'm trying to feed them, and then they run into issues with hollow points when you're trying to run them in the gun. So it's a little annoying that happens, but I understand why it happens, and in case other people are running into that issue, that's why that's happening. So I know it's not a maintenance issue, I know it's not a gun issue, because I have a lot of experience in 1911s. This is not unusual. I know what to look for. I've seen this happen before in other guns, so that's, in my opinion, what's happening with this. So that's not a criticism really on this gun. It's really more of the magazines, and as any person with sense will tell you, the heart of reliability for a semi-auto firearm is the magazines, more than anything else. Arguably maybe maintenance, but the magazines are the heart of reliability for any semi-auto firearm. So, but yeah, I really did wanted to try the hollow point reliability with this gun, because there are some 1911s and some guns that just do not like hollow points. So I'm happy to say that if I load this gun correctly, it feeds hollow points just fine. You know, I was going through an entire mag, every magazine I had, I filled it up to capacity. I put a +1 in there, fired the whole magazine, no problems whatsoever. Like I said, the only issues came when I had a fully loaded magazine, and you know, the gun was locked open like this, and I tried to put it in and send the slide home. It wouldn't do it, because the round would just nosedive straight into the ramp there. So that's the only issue. Would it work if you downloaded it 1 or 2 rounds and then send the slide home? Yeah, probably it would. But it is something to note if you're using brand new magazines that have very powerful springs in them. So yeah, just a little note on not only 1911s, but maybe some other pistols as well that have these little intricacies that are kind of hard to pinpoint unless you know what you're looking for. So, but other than that, I put about 150 rounds through this, because that was about all I was willing to shoot at the time, because ammo is quite expensive and hard to find these days, and it hasn't changed since I've been gone. So, you know, I need to save some for my other guns, because I've got a lot of guns chambered at 9mm. So, but yeah, overall, this thing was an absolute pleasure to shoot. Very, very happy with the shooting experience of it, the accuracy, the functionality, the reliability of it, the value. You know, like I said, these are around $400, $425, $450, right? Honestly, it's just a good purchase, you know. And some people have noted as well that the mag wells are actually beveled on these. I don't know if you can see that there. They actually have a slight bevel to them. That's pretty nice. Because the Rock Island I have does not. It's just straight, and there's also a little cut here in the front of the mag well there. So on that one, you know, it's 45, but when I put a magazine in, sometimes my hand can get pinched, like right there in between, like when the mag closes all the way, it can get pinched, and that hurts a little bit. I've definitely done that before. I've got little marks from it. So yeah, it's nice that they have that in there, so this gun does not pinch me, which is awesome. I also have never gotten hammer bite with a 1911. I still to this day do not understand how people do that. A lot of the other reviews on YouTube for these Tisas 1911s, the guys always complain about hammer bite. I do not understand how people do that. I really don't. I've never gotten hammer bite on any gun ever, and you know, this is the standard way that I hold it, just like this. You know, I mean, it's my left hand, but my left hand and right hand posture does not change. So I really do not understand, like, this is how I'm holding it right here, and people say they get hammer bite. I don't get it. I've never gotten hammer bite on these. Then again, I grew up shooting these, so I know how to shoot them, and I didn't grow up shooting Glocks, which a lot of people have. So I can kind of see where they're coming from with, like, if they're doing like a super duper high up grip, you know, where their hands are all over the top here and they're trying to do super thumbs forward, you know, some crazy crap like that. That I can get. Okay, cool. But you ever considered just not shooting it like that? You know, just hold it normally? I don't know. It's always strange to me. So I still think 1911s are definitely still, to this day, one of the most ergonomic, comfortable, awesome pistols to shoot. I much prefer these over pretty much any other pistol, although the HK USP is a close second. But yeah, like I said, overall, I'm really happy with this purchase. Very impressed by Tisas's ability to manufacture very, very obviously quality and accurate firearms at the price point that they do, and the simple fact that they offer, you know, a nice little replica, I guess, option for people who want a really basic GI style 1911. That's always cool, man. You know, because there's just some people who just aren't interested in paying the rather exorbitant prices for a real, you know, World War I, World War II actual GI style 1911. And then also the fact that people don't want to shoot original pieces because you're putting wear in original pieces, you could break things, so on and so forth. So it's always nice to have alternatives, and it's always nice to have, you know, I would say budget options, but honestly, like the sheer value you can get from this is, I don't know. It's very comparable to Rock Island, and I'm super happy there's more options out there. So in case you don't like the Rock Islands, you can try these Tisas's or other Turkish guns. So to me, I don't really care where it's made. It's quality, it shoots well, it's accurate, it's reliable. What more do you want, right? So Very much looking forward to more stuff I can do with this, like getting a threaded barrel, maybe putting a bushing compensator on it, getting some nice parts on there, replacing the sights for sure. Because, like I said, even though I was able to get a 2¼ inch group at 25 yards with these sights and this gun, I want better sights. It is. I will say it's not easy to shoot the simple notch and little front rounded blade sight that this has. It's not easy to shoot those. I just have a lot of experience with that, so to me it's a little bit easier, but it could be better. It could be better is what I'm trying to say. So I'll probably get some LPA, like adjustable target sights, like a fiber optic front, blacked out rear. That's my favorite setup for target sights. Put those suckers on here. Get a better, lighter trigger. Different recoil springs, full length guide rod, maybe. The sky's the limit. Sky's the limit. So I'm excited to see what I can do with this gun, and I'm super happy that I bought it. And 9mm 1911s are a lot of fun. They just have little intricacies about them that you have to be aware of, because they didn't redesign this pistol from the ground up to accept 9mm. They just took the 45 frames and then just shoved 9mm in it. So it's not perfect. It's very obvious that the 1911s were not ever intended to be 9mm handguns, although there's some historians who probably argue that point. But it still works. This thing weighs an absolute ton for a 9mm, so there's almost no recoil with these things. It's much more easier to control than a 45 1911, that's for sure, 100%. But yeah, overall, really pleasant experience to own, operate, shoot this thing, maintain it, so on and so forth. So if you know your way around 1911s and you're looking for a cheap, but relatively quality 9mm 1911 that you can do a whole lot with later, this is absolutely a good choice, I think. So really can't go wrong. And like I said, very, very comparable to Rock Island. So if you're cool at Rock Islands, you'll be cool with this one. You'll be right at home. So really excited to bring that one to you guys, because I was excited to get this one for a long time. And like I said, I've been away for a few months, and I'm just so ecstatic to be home and land of the free in a much, much better country than I was before. And be able to come back and shoot guns again and do videos for you guys. So awesome stuff. Really happy to be back, and I'll be bringing more stuff to you soon, because this ain't the only one that I bought as a gift for me to myself. Let me tell you that right now. So, I'm financially responsible. At least that's what I tell people. So, anyway, enough gushing about this. This is a great pistol. I really recommend it for people who are looking for this kind of thing. Great stuff. Really happy with how it shot, and so hopefully I can get my hands on some more ammo and be able to enjoy this piece a whole lot more. And I'll do another, I guess I'll do a 1,000 rounds update as well once I get to that point, if I ever get to that point, for this gun, just like I did with the Rock Island, so you guys can see the wear patterns and everything to kind of get a better idea for the quality and everything else and things like that for this gun. Because I think it's an interesting journey for me as well. Because there are some differences with this and the 45, so I'm excited to learn and see how things turn out. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that, and we'll definitely catch you next time.